This week in our class, we're hitting two topics to help you kind of think about as you, in this past week, meeting the client, kind of getting to know them, getting some basic assessment information, usually what we call an intake or an assessment session, where you get that kind of primary data from the client, what's going on with them, what kinds of things are troubling them that really has brought them to the counseling. I've encouraged you to kind of think about a question rather than, okay, what's the problem? Why are you in counseling? Or why are you coming to counseling? It's just to talk about here's what counseling does, here's how it works, and then let me get to know you a little bit. Let's just talk and kind of see what's going on. And as we do, begin to discover the things that are troubling the client. And then say, okay, here's where I think we can go. Here's what I think we can do. Um, you, does that sound good to you? You think that's okay to do that, and for us to continue with this process, you want to try that. Um, and you get that buy-in from the client. So once you get that, though, you continue to hear the client, but what you want to do is, as our chapter, one of the chapters this week talks about, is to challenge the client. Okay, so what is it that you're going to do? As I have mentioned, you want to get the client to describe where they are in life and where they want to go. Well, really what we're dealing with this week is, all right, how do I take the client from where they say they are and difficulties or issues or problems in their life that are very dissatisfying for them to where they want to be satisfied and fulfilled in life. So that gap in between here is the counseling process. And so how do we begin to take that person from where they are to where they want to be? It's as simple as that to me. I realize there's more to it than that, but that's really the basics. So in the chapter this week, when we talk about helping clients challenge themselves, it really is, this is the rubber hits the road. So if you want to be different, if you want your life to be different, then what do you have to do? In counseling, we call that a treatment plan a lot of times. The treatment plan is what we define as the goals and the objectives in that technical process of counseling. And those things that the person can do that we talk about being measurable and achievable, reasonable for them, time limited, so that they can accomplish those things. But that's what we do. So how do we challenge the client then to do that? Is the client ready? Do we encourage the client with smaller steps? A lot of times when clients have so much going on, one of the things I will say to them, look, you've given me 5 or 6 things that are really difficult issues for you. Let's just start with one. What do you think is the main one? What do you think is the hardest one, or the most difficult one, or the most problematic thing for you? Let's just start there and work on that and see what happens. And then you may even have to break it down into little smaller steps for the clients as they go forward and look at how they're going to change their lives. So what do you do in terms of challenging them to think about what they need to do? One of the things that's mentioned in the textbook this week in this chapter is helping clients see their blind spots. We all have blind spots. I know there are things in my life I wouldn't like to deal with or admit about myself or confront. I hope I can, and I will if need be, but I don't particularly like confronting them, and I know sometimes I don't like being challenged around them, especially by others. And so, how do I go about really motivating and challenging a client to do the things that they need to do? So that's that's kind of where we are this week, and how do we do that? The other piece of this that's in the chapter about the action arrow. As you remember in our theme for the problem management and opportunity development model that we're using, there are those three questions. Where is my life? What is going on? What is it that I need and want in life? And then how do I get there? Those are the three stages. And there are parts built into those, but still, where do I want to go? Well, that action arrow that's in our theory is that motivation and that drive, that thing that helps the client. So, what are they going to do? These are the real actionable things. You hear that word used a lot, actionable information. So, what is it that you're really going to do? That you are actually going to do as a client to change your life, to do something different? So that's the goal. That's the objective. How do you do that? So what are those things? So I have to start doing something. That's really the counseling process. And then as a client comes in and out in subsequent sessions, you talk about, well, hey, how did you do? What's been going on? Are there barriers? Are there things that are causing you problems that are blocking you from going forward and doing these things? Are you just kind of avoiding dealing with them? Are you just kind of passive and not wanting to deal with things? A lot of people don't like to confront things. A lot of people don't like conflict. And so a lot of times people will just avoid things. They won't deal with things, find excuses and reasons not to do things. That's what you're dealing with in the counseling process. And so as you do that, that action arrow is the thing that keeps the energy going. That's how I would describe it. So what is the client doing? How are you helping them engage in things that they're doing? So that's the action arrow. And that's really what you do between the beginning of counseling and the end of counseling, are those actions. And that arrow, that action arrow, is a constant feedback system. What are the goals? What are the objectives here that I have for this client? How do we measure those things? What is it going to look like? As we put the pieces together and paint this end picture for our clients, what will it look like when it's completed? What's going on? Are they doing the things? If they're not, then what are the barriers? What are the things that are stalling them out, that are preventing them from getting that action going? So you may work on those things. You may have to go back and revisit what the problem is. You may have identified a fundamental problem that's not the real problem. We've talked about getting the really accurate, correct story from a client so that you know what the real issues are. That's what a part of that feedback loop does for you, to help you kind of think about that and continue in this conceptualization process of the problem and what you're doing with the client, and then those step-by-step things that you're doing outlined in that treatment plan. What are they doing? In good therapy with good clients that are motivated, guess what? That progression happens. They work on it. They accomplish those things, and you pat them on the back and say, great, I've enjoyed working with you. Now I need to launch you. But sometimes it doesn't go that smoothly. And so you have to really challenge that client. You have to really get in there. And sometimes it means even kind of confronting the things that are going on that are the barriers or the excuses they're making. So that's a part of that process as well. But that's that rubber hitting the road place. That's that week by week kind of meeting with that client for that hour, checking in with them, seeing where they are, what's going on, what are they working on. If they're working on it, what's happening? What are they noticing? What are they seeing? If they're not working on it, why not? What's going on with them? So that's the counseling process. And as you talk about theories, I know some people have taken the theories course. That's really, as we've talked with this model that we're using, it's a skeleton that really would work with any theory. So it's really moving that person from where they are to where they want to be, is how your theory fits in there. So if you're a CBT counselor, the things that you're doing are going to be techniques and skills that are associated with cognitive behavioral therapy. If you're doing more of an emotionally focused kind of thing, then you're going to be talking to the person more about their emotional experience and the things that they're experiencing as far as what it feels like and where they are and what they're seeing about themselves. If you're just strictly behavioral in the process, you will be doing things that will just help them begin to look at new habits or new behaviors in what you're doing or how they're doing that and how you structure that. Or if it's some kind of trauma focused process where a person is having to come to grips with some traumatic or difficult event in their lives or a history of trauma. So that process in there is where you begin to use that theory to help you move in those actions. And as you think about how you do that and discover that. So obviously that's a part of other classes and then things you'll do in practicum and internship. But this is really where we're at this week in terms of getting that information, um, helping that client kind of be challenged. Okay, what are you going to do? How do we take you? What's the road we're going to travel together? What does that look like? We call that a treatment plan. That's your roadmap. And then how do you do that? And what actions and what kinds of things are you going to consistently do to get that client? So, excuse me, that's what we do this week. And I hope that'll help kind of think about this process of moving that client forward this week as you get that basic information and then begin to decide what kinds of things do you do that are going to move and shift that client. So hope you have a good week this week. Again, if you have questions or thoughts, please be willing to share those and to put the information out there as we talk this week. Have a great week.